Hey guys, welcome back to Sports Spectrum. I am Jason Romano. Today on the show, we are excited to welcome Josh Manson from the Anaheim Ducks. Josh, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It's good to talk to you. Good to see you. First of all, before we start, I'm looking at you. We're taping this in November, and you got a heck of a mustache going, man. What's going on with the facial hair and the mustache there?
Yeah, it was something that with COVID and the mask situation, I started growing it, and my wife liked it. And when I went out into public, the mask covered it up anyway, so I didn't have to deal with the humiliation of it at first. And then as it kind of grew and we got into November, the Anaheim Ducks asked me if I would want to keep it around and do the Movember participate in Movember. And I thought, all right, well, I got a head start already, so I might as well keep it. So here it is, still here midway through November, and I think come December 1st, it'll be a new look.
There you go. I was going to say, well, if the wife likes it, you got to keep it, because my wife, if I tried to grow a mustache, she would probably stop looking at me for a very long time. So
Yeah.
if the wife likes it, you got to keep it, right?
Hey, happy wife, happy life, right?
See, you're getting it, Josh. You got it. Now,
Exactly.
interestingly enough, the last time you played a hockey game, as I go back and look at this, was the day the pandemic was declared, March 11th. What do you remember about that day as we look back?
It was just a really weird situation because things were starting to shut down around us, but hockey we were still playing, and then the news came, okay, we're not, everything's getting shut down and we're not going to be going to the rink at all anymore. And it was just this flat ending, where you're grinding towards the end of the season, and there's so many things going on with hockey, but then all of a sudden it just comes to a complete stop, and you don't there's this unknown of when are we going to start up again. And you start thinking, oh well, it'll pick up in a month or two, or and you're okay, well, how do I train for this? And there's so many questions that come up. But it was such a weird day, because what it reminded me of in a weird way was like a snow day when you're at going to school and you wake up and it's like, oh, not going to school today. It's like a great day. It's like, okay, well, when's the snow going to go away? But with this, it's like your job, right? And
Yeah.
you have to prepare for it, and you have to put so much effort into it. And with the unknown of when you're going to start up again, it's really been dragging on.
What was that like initially? I mean, going from playing to suddenly abruptly stopping, and now here again, we're taping this in November around Thanksgiving, and you still haven't played a game yet. So it's been a while. This has got to be the most craziest time for you. Obviously, it's crazy for all of us, but being a professional hockey player and not having played a game in, what's that? I don't know exactly, 8 months. That's a long time.
Yeah, it's been. I mean, this is the longest stretch I've ever gone without playing a hockey game, a competitive hockey game. We've been talking amongst our team, and try to use it as an advantage, and put your time in the weight room, put your time in on the ice when you get the chances to, and let your body heal up in the right ways and prepare yourself mentally. All those stuff that the grueling season takes its toll on you. Use this time to get it back, but also build your strength and take advantage of the lengthened summer. So we've been doing that, but now it's kind of hitting the point where you're like, okay, I've
Let's
been
go.
doing it. Let's go. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping there's I think we see the light at the end of the tunnel a little bit, and I'm hoping that comes to fruition here.
Then a month later, after March 11th and the pandemic and hockey stops, you become a dad, right? Baby Gemma Grace, I believe is her name. What was that experience like, having a child with COVID going on and becoming a dad?
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, COVID or not, what an experience welcoming your first child, bringing life into the world. Uh, Shout out to my wife; she's amazing.
Shout out to all the wives, right?
Shout out to all the wives, yes. But no, we were obviously concerned, and we were worried about everything that was going on, and that was kind of early on in learning about the virus and the effects that it has on different types of people, and the effects that it has on young children's and infants, and all these studies were still being done, but there was no hard evidence or any data. So and also the hospital, we weren't sure if I was going to be allowed in. We weren't sure who was going to be allowed in the hospital room, whether we were wearing masks or what it was. So we were very lucky, very blessed that I was allowed in, and the mask situation was under control, and it all went perfectly. But it was just a weird time because we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know how things were gonna progress. Because she was 7 months pregnant, I believe, when it all started, and then the baby was born in end of April. But it went great, and it's been an amazing journey having a daughter now.
Well, how great. First of all, I'm a girl dad. My daughter's 16 now, but it is an amazing, uh, just an amazing blessing to be able to be the dad of a daughter. And you'll see that as she gets older and older, even more than you see it now. But I'm thinking through this. So when you find out she's pregnant and you're looking at the date and you see April 20th or 23rd or whatever the dates are, you're thinking, all right, we might be in the playoffs. We hopefully will be in the playoffs, and I might have to figure this out. And then everything stops. And there's probably a real blessing within the curse of a pandemic that you get to be home and be a part of your daughter's journey of growing up the first 6 months. That's not normally how it would be in this case, right?
Yeah, you really hit the nail on the head here with this one, because originally you plan as much as you can, but obviously it's out of our hands. It's in God's hands. But we were try to make it so that the end of the season would come, and we'd have the baby, and I'd have the summertime or the playoffs, and after the playoffs the summertime. And come, I don't even know, end of January, February, we kind of started to see that the playoff hopes were slipping away. And I was preparing, okay, well, it's going to work out perfect, the timing's going to be great, God's timing. The season's going to end. We didn't make the playoffs this year, which is unfortunate, but what a blessing. The baby will be born, and I'll have all this time to spend with her. And then bam, pandemic hits, and we still have 11 games to play. And now they're saying, okay, well, we're going to pick up in a month or 2 months or whatever. And I'm like, wow, shoot, now the baby's going to be born, and I'm going to be back right into the end of the season. And
Yeah.
and the timing's not going to work out. And so it was a bit of a roller coaster there for a while, but it's worked out for the best. And what a blessing, not having hockey, but being able to have all this time that I could just spend with my daughter in these formidable years, being 6 months old now.
Not being able to be in the playoffs obviously stinks because that's always the goal for every team. But I wondered, when the NHL bubble sort of restarted back in the summer, did you watch any of that, or did you kind of just not want to check it out and see what was going on?
Yeah, usually I keep a little bit of distance from the playoffs when it's a normal year. And especially if we made the playoffs and we lost out, I had a hard time watching. But this year was different. With no hockey for so long, I'm a fan of hockey. At the end of the day, I enjoy watching hockey. I love hockey. It's what I do. And all that time spent away from it, I was excited to have playoffs. So I watched every bit of it. And I had a couple buddies that were on some teams, so I like to keep tabs on them and wish them well. So I did pay pretty close attention.
Well, hockey's been in your family's, genes for how many years? Because your dad, Dave, was a former NHL defenseman, one of the toughest guys maybe to ever play in hockey. So I have to imagine you basically have no memory of of there not being hockey in your life, right?
No, exactly. Yeah, it's been around in our family for a while. And even the city I grew up in, very passionate hockey place.
Josh Manson joins us here today on Sports Spectrum. He's our guest from the Anaheim Ducks. So, what's your favorite memory of watching your dad as a kid? I was looking up the dates and trying to pinpoint when your dad finished and you growing up sort of in a hockey family. And I believe it was 2001 when he last played. So you would have been around 9 or 10 years old. Do you have memories of watching him play as a kid?
I do. There are very few. The actual playing part, I don't remember a lot of it. Um, I didn't understand it, to be honest with you. I didn't really know that he was in the NHL, and the NHL was this prestigious league that everybody in hockey tried to make. And
Yeah.
how successful he was at it. Not just as he was obviously played it and he made it, but for 17 years he made it his career. And how successful he was, I had no idea. So my memories were really just in the locker room, going to practices, sitting on the bench. The guys spray you with a water bottle or things like that. Those were what really resonated with me. Not as much my dad's playing ability or watching him on the ice. That was what stuck to me, was the memories of the teammates and being around the locker room and making the power.
I have to imagine though, you've done your YouTube diligence to watch your dad play, because I'm looking at the stats here. Your dad once had 352 penalty minutes in the 88-89 season when he was with the Blackhawks. And that was his highest number. But I went and looked, kind of comparing to what penalty minutes today are. The guys don't have that many anymore. In
No.
fact, the most you had was 82 in the 16-17 season when you guys went to the conference finals, which is still a lot. But compared to 352, it was just a different game then, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot of 10-minute misconducts in there, I think.
You have to
Yeah,
imagine. Yeah.
it was a different game for sure. I've seen a couple of his videos on YouTube. Well, not his videos, but just of him.
Yeah.
Um, Interesting, just a different side of him. That's not what I see as my dad. He's this loving man that cares so deeply about his family, and then you put him on the ice in those situations, and you know what? Well, the way he acts with our family and how he protects us and how he cares for us, it shows on the ice, because the reasons he was doing those things was because he cared so deeply about his teammates and protecting his teammates, and standing up for himself as well. So it does show a little bit, but it was always interesting to watch it.
Well,
I'd be lying if I said it didn't fire me up a little bit, watching those videos of your
I
dad.
have to imagine too, because it's such an interesting dynamic. And we're going to talk about your faith in a second. I really want to hear your faith journey, but it's an interesting dynamic to be this sort of really nice, gentle, kind, whatever it is, like you just described your dad, but just in general, being that person, and then going on the ice and being a defenseman, a tough guy who's hitting people around, and sometimes you got to hit them harder, and sometimes you drop the gloves and you start fighting. And it's just, I don't know, what's that dynamic like, trying to still be, a Christian, I guess, and be a witness for Jesus, and an example, but still be tough and be hard nosed. And sometimes that means getting in a fight and dropping the gloves.
Yeah, that's been a battle that I've had a little bit in my career. My dad, he didn't grow up in the church. He didn't grow up as a religious man or anything like that. So I think he didn't really struggle with that side of things as much when he played.
Sure.
But now with me, it's be kind to your neighbors, and all these things that you read about in the Bible, and then you go on the ice and somebody does something, and the wires kind of touch, and you get mad, and the only way you kind of know how to respond is you got to hit them, or you want to fight them, you want to punch them, and you want to yell things at them,
Yeah.
and taking that back. It's been a little weird transition for me, and I've really tried to watch my mouth, first and foremost, and the things that I say with my mouth. My actions, okay, if I need to fight, that's a part of my game, and that's kind of who I am. But I've been really trying to watch with what I say, and keeping that pure the best I can.
So walk us through, I should say, your faith journey. Where did that happen? You said your dad didn't grow up in a real religious home or having any faith in that sense, as a part of his life. So where does that come to play for you? How do you get introduced to Christ?
Yeah, so my story is a little bit. I don't want to say different, because everybody's stories are different, and that's what makes everybody special. But mine, I I really didn't grow up in a religious home. I didn't have any friends that were Christians growing up. I didn't know anything about it.
Same.
And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's such uh, a crazy thing to think about, that I didn't know anybody in my hometown. There's a longer story on that as well, but
Sure.
so anyways, I got to Newport Beach, and I met my wife, and come to find out, well, my wife now, at the time she was just a girl, and I come to find out that she was a strong believer and came from a family of strong Christians and strong believers. And she said, if you want to be with me, this is a part that comes with me, and this is, a huge part of my life, is a spirituality, and loving Jesus. And I was taken aback by it at first, because I didn't know anything, and I didn't know how to receive it. But I
Mm.
knew one thing, and I knew that I loved her. And it's a crazy story, because I had never truly felt that way about a girl before. And then I meet the one girl that I was like head over heels for, and I knew this was my person. And she lays this on me, and I kind of had to make the decision. And from there, I started getting more interested in Jesus, and learning more, and reading more books. And one of the books that I read was More Than a Carpenter.
Yeah.
And I got to the end of the book and, made the statement, read the statement at the end of the book, and um, accepted Jesus into my life. And from there, I wouldn't say, you hear the stories of other people where they say, I gave my life to Jesus and my life was changed instantly. And I was this whole new person, and it was like a page flipped, and I was a complete 180 of the person I was before. And I can't say that that's what happened to me. That's, that happens in other people's walks, but that's not what happened to me. Mine has been a slow progression of learning and reading more and becoming more interested in it, because I didn't grow up knowing God. I didn't grow up, even having that little bit of religion in my life where I could, I want to step away from that.
Yeah.
I never stepped away from anything because I had never known about it. So I just kind of took it step by step and learned more. And I'm not to the point where I want to be, and I don't know if anybody is truly, but I have a lot of learning and growing left to do in my journey, and I can say that honestly.
First of all, thank you for sharing that, because I believe as followers of Christ, the worst thing we can do is compare ourselves to others in their walks and say, well, that person knows more, so he's got it made and I'm just whatever. We're all works in progress here. So, you said that, and I think that's a really poignant statement and a very powerful point to make for those listening. Number one. Number two, you read a book, and that's what kind of led you to begin that journey. And that's fascinating to me. I say a book, like we all should read the Bible, and that should lead us to a place to accept Christ. But a book, and I have that book, More Than a Carpenter. In fact, I just pulled it out this morning because I was cleaning out some books and I saw it, and I just kind of smiled. But what was it about that book that really, I don't know, put the pieces together, I guess, to make sense for you?
Yeah, and there was another book as well that I read, The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that one, but
Very much so. Yeah,
yeah,
great book.
that was a great book for me. I was very, I didn't believe that it was real. I'd grown up not putting much thought into it. It was just like, there's no way this could be real. There's no way, and it sounds terrible, but I couldn't believe that Jesus could be real, or that God could
Sure.
be real, that because that was just the way I grew up. I never put thought into it. And then you read these books and he gives you these facts. Lee Strobel gives you facts about how Jesus was here, and look at all the evidence that lies before you. How could you say that the Bible is not real?
Right.
And as I read it, I'm going to be honest with you, I still sometimes struggle to believe it, that all of this is so real.
Yep.
Um, but it is. And when I got to the end of the book, it made sense to me, a lot more than it had before. And so that was made my decision very easy, to give my life over to Christ.
So you talked about it being a process. Obviously, it wasn't this, fire and brimstone 180 change. And I know people, including my brother, that happened to. And I know people like me who I can relate to you, Josh, because for me, it was a process too. I said yes. My heart was open to say yes, but I really didn't understand what I was saying yes to until I started this journey. Right. And I found people to surround myself with that could show me and kind of learn from. What's that been like for you? And I imagine the importance of your wife, then maybe not wife, fiance, girlfriend, whatever, had to be a very integral part in terms of your growth, because like you said, maybe you're not where you want to be, but you're not where you were, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And they've been my wife now, and my in-laws uh, have been so important in my growth. They're such strong believers, and they're the best people, and they're the kind of people that, even before I had given my life to Christ, I thought I believed I was a good person. I think, as most people do, you treat people with respect, and you try to be as nice as you can to everybody and help out your neighbor, and all those good things. But when I was around them, it was just a different feeling. They were so nice, they were so gracious, and I went to church with them, and I'd never really been to church before, and all the people there were so accepting, and they were so nice, and I was like, these are the kind of people that I want to surround myself with. These are the type of people that I can tell that they care about you. They care about what's happening in your life. They want to get to know you. Um, and I think when I was at college, there was the people, not, I shouldn't say my close friends, but the majority of people, you could tell there's just a different connection, and as soon as I stepped into the church with these people in this community, you feel accepted, you feel welcomed, you feel warm. um, and I knew that was the type of person that I wanted to be, like. And if Jesus was the answer, if this is what made people like this, then that's the path that I want to go down, because I want to be this type of people.
Yeah, that's really well said, man. I'm so glad that you're saying this because, I think people are afraid sometimes to talk about their faith because they think, well, I don't have every Bible verse quoted or memorized scripture or have it all figured out. But I think everybody's testimony, like you said, is different. And I think it's important today for people who are listening to hear that Josh Manson doesn't have it all figured out, but you're on the journey, you're on the path, and you grow and you learn from that. I have to imagine it's similar in terms of a parallel to hockey too, right? Like hockey, you don't have it figured out when you first get to the league, and you kind of grow and you learn and you pick up things, and then hopefully you're better today than you were yesterday, than you were last year. But you still have a lot of ways to go. There's a lot of parallels, I would imagine, with sports and with your faith.
Oh, for sure. And in hockey, you look at some of the best players, and you want to pick their brains, right? You want to
Sure.
ask them, hey, well, what did you do here? How did you make this play happen? What were you thinking in this situation? And that was essentially what I would do, in little bits, and what I'm sure people in the Christian faith do. You want to talk to people who have been down the road for so long, and they've been walking with the Lord for 40 years. Ask them the questions, because I guarantee they went through what you're going through right now at some point in their life, and they can help you with those answers. And that's exactly what I've been lucky enough to have in my in-laws, and other people in my life, not just them, that I've met as I've gone down this road, is just advice and examples.
How long ago was it when you read More Than a Carpenter and The Case for Christ? So how long has this journey been going on for you?
I met my wife 4 years ago. um,
Okay.
so it would have been probably, yeah, about 3.5 years ago, somewhere in there, 3.5 years ago.
So 2017, so very, very new still. But what changed? Because you were already in the hockey world. You were already playing professional hockey. You said your mouth was something that you wanted to work on, in your words and talking to people. Listen, that was my biggest struggle for 3 years. I realized, oh my gosh, I curse like a sailor here. I need to kind of work on this just for me personally. It doesn't mean that I'm any, super religious guy. It was just for me personally. I needed to work on my mouth. But for you, what changed in how you approached your job, the very public job that you have with people who know about you? What changed?
um, I think it, like what you said, my mouth, first of all, that was something that you grow up in the locker room, and you have that locker room talk, and it's bad.
Absolutely.
If you're in the locker room, you don't realize how bad it is. But when you take a step back and you go into real life, and you speak like that, it's I think it's something that you just get accustomed to being around the locker room, but it really doesn't apply in real life, or at least I don't think it should. And so that was the first step for me, because that truly was the easiest thing that I could do. Just change words, change words that I would normally say into different words. And so that was, I think, where it started for me. And then it as I went down, there was things that my wife would say, well, I don't want you doing this, and I had to change my outlook on a lot of things, especially, things that in the hockey culture seem very normal, seem like things that everybody does. And I think guys started to take notice a little bit. And obviously there's some guys that would say poke fun a little bit, but in the grand scheme of things, I was comfortable and confident in what I was doing, and so it made it easier, you know doing that, especially having people that I know so strongly believe in all that, and not swearing,
Yeah.
and being true to yourself, all those good things, having them in my corner, um, made me even more confident in it.
Does it change your perspective too when you become a dad and you see Gemma and you're like, oh my gosh, I would do anything for this child? Does that change your perspective on who God is and who Jesus is?
Yeah, that was definitely something that happened at the beginning, and it still does. When you hold your child for the first time, and they talk about this love that you have for your child, and they say, well, this is how Jesus loves you, you
Right.
know and I held the baby, and I'm thinking to myself, like, wow, this is how Jesus loves me. And if my child were to ever walk away from me and be distant from me, how sad that would make me, and how much I would just want to bring her closer to me, you know? And it really put things in perspective.
That's cool. Last couple questions here with Josh Manson on Sports Spectrum. Let's pivot back to the ice. I think it's a lot of fun to kind of talk some on the ice type of conversation here and ask some questions there. And I think for me, I love asking a lot of the players that I talk to in whatever sport that I talk to, and the athletes, what their welcome to the league moment was. So for you, do you remember your welcome to the NHL moment where you realized, oh, okay, this is different. I'm here. And hello, Josh Manson, NHL player. Do you remember that day, that game?
You know, I don't know if I exactly had that moment, but I do know of a time when I was looking around, and I really had this, I don't know what they call it, if they call it an outer body experience. I don't even know what you
An
call it. But
epiphany.
anyways, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was standing on the blue line, and always when my dad would play, my favorite thing was the national anthem. And I don't know why. I always loved the national anthem. I loved when the guys hit the ice and then stood on the blue line and listened to the national anthem. It always gave me chills and just this weird feeling. And I had always pictured myself standing on standing on the blue line, the national anthem, wearing, an NHL sweater, and it was the Ducks, obviously, after I got drafted. And when that day came, I got the call for the starting lineup, and I stood on the blue line, and I just kind of stood there, and I didn't even hear the national anthem going on. I was just kind of like looking around like this, like looking up at the upper deck and the suites, and I looked down and I saw the logo on my chest, and I realized, you made it. Wow, you really did it. You worked hard. Took the time, and put the effort in, and now it's paid off. Look at the dreams, the things that you've been thinking of. Here they are laid out right in front of you, and that was a really, really cool moment.
That's awesome. I love that. I was just thinking when you mentioned Ducks, you would have grown up in the 90s and early 2000s. Was the Mighty Ducks a movie that you watched and loved, or was that kind of just, there and you didn't connect the dots and all of a sudden you're playing for this team?
Yeah, no, I watched the one movie. I think I maybe watched two of them. I wasn't a huge hockey fan when I was growing up, to be honest with you.
Interesting.
I know, super, yeah, different. I have such a different story, I feel like, than so many other guys, because I was right in the hockey locker room with my dad, but at the same time, hockey wasn't my thing. I didn't enjoy hockey growing up. It wasn't what I felt passionate about till I was maybe 15.
So
It
what were
was
you
when I
passionate about as a kid? Was it other sports, comic books, cartoons, movies, whatever?
I couldn't even tell you. I went through phases. It was like one thing to the next thing to the next thing. There was one point where I wanted to be a snowboarder, and I was dead set I was going to be a snowboarder. I wanted to quit hockey when I was like 13 years old, and I was going to be a snowboarder. And my mom
Fascinating.
was like, "You're not quitting hockey to be a snowboarder and go hang out on the slopes and blah blah blah." And this is in northern Saskatchewan where we don't even have hills. Like,
Right.
it was hard enough to find a hill to go snowboarding on that we had just outside our city. So she's like, "No, that's not happening." And thank goodness she did, because it all panned out in the end.
It worked out. Yeah, it worked out
Yeah.
for you, Josh Manson. So let me ask you this: what's the maybe your favorite game that you've ever played in the short time that you've been playing? It's only been what? Are you in your sixth season, seventh season?
Oh, I think six. I think six,
This
five
will be
full.
six. Yeah.
This will be, I think, the sixth full season, I
Okay.
think.
So that's not a long time, but it's long enough to have experienced a lot of games. Is there a game that
Yeah.
sticks out that you're like, that was the game? I love that game.
I think, game in the playoffs, game 7 against the Oilers. Oh, no, 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 no. The game 5, I think, against the Oilers. They called it the comeback on Catella. When
Okay.
we were down 4-1 with 3 minutes left, and we scored in 3 minutes. We scored 3 goals to take it to overtime, and then Corey Perry scored the overtime winner.
Oh,
Um, that was a game I had never experienced anything like that in my life. It was surreal. You get to that 4-1, 3 minutes left, and you sit down on the bench, and you're kind of like, okay. And I'm obviously not one of the guys that goes out there with 3 minutes left to try and score a goal. I'll
right.
I'll go out there to defend a goal, but not to score a goal. So I'm just kind of sitting there hoping for the best, and all of a sudden it was just like bang, 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 3 goals, and you're just in shock, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was one I'll remember for the rest of my life. That was an amazing, amazing game.
And then a game 7. I mean, there's nothing like a game 7, right?
No, yeah, and then to pull that one out and to be able to go to the conference finals. Obviously, I wish for a different result in the conference finals, but
That's cool. I have to
good
imagine
experience.
you're ready to get back at it, aren't you? I can
Yeah.
just sense you're
Oh
ready to
yeah.
go.
Yeah, you get the itch. It was a weird thing. I think I said weird about a million times, but I think that's just the
It
time we're
is
in right
though.
now.
I've said weird a million times too. It's what we're
Yeah,
in. We're in this
it,
weird time.
exactly. But it comes September and it was like training camp time, right? And I'm looking around and I'm like at the rink and there's nobody there. And I'm like, man, I should be in the gym
Well, the season was
right
still
now.
going on, right? The season was still going on.
Well, this was before, but now I'm talking September.
Right.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, the bubble
exactly.
season was still
Yeah, the
going
bubble
on
season was
in such
going
a
on.
weird
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
And I'm at the rink thinking like we should be in training camp right now, getting ready for the season. Like, what is going on here? So
Yeah.
yeah, just different.
That's all right. Well, this has been great, my friend. Thanks for sharing your faith journey. Thanks for talking some hockey. And whenever this season kicks off, man, I hope it's a great one for you. And all the best. And congrats on becoming a dad. All the best to your wife and to baby Gemma. Thanks for joining us, Josh.
Thank you. This was great. Had a lot of fun.